Hi, Bisi, welcome. And
Thank you very much, Pancho.
Thanks for being willing to do this interview for Coreb.
It's my pleasure.
So why don't we start out with a little background information on you, where you grew up, where you went to school, sort of trace the journey of your becoming a playwright.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pancho. My name is Bisi Adigun. I was born 50 odd years ago in Jos, in the northern part of Nigeria in West Africa. I am the last born of 7. So around 1975, I lost my mom to a tragic motor accident. So for that reason, I was relocated to the southern part of Nigeria, where I began to live with my aunt, married to a pharmacist, in a place called Ile-Ife in Western Nigeria. Just to let you know, Ile-Ife is considered among the Yorubas as the cradle of mankind. We believe that is truly the Garden of Eden. So why I'm saying that to you is because that place is a very culturally charged city, is an ancient city where we believe the world began. In fact, the meaning of Ile-Ife is where the land spreads. So we believe that the world began there and spread to other parts of the world. So I started living with my aunt in Ile-Ife at the age of 9. I was doing my primary school. I recall that Ile-Ife has a university, a very well-known university used to be called University of Ife, but is now Obafemi Awolowo University. It was a custom then that they would do a convocation play. So I think in 1976, I was taken to see a play called The Gods Are Not to Blame by Olarotimi, a famous Nigerian playwright of blessed memory. The play is an adaptation of Oedipus the King by Sophocles. So the play resonated with me because it was a very well done play. It's what we call total theater. It has dance, music, songs, and chants. I was in primary school then, but that was the day I made up my mind I was going to study dramatic arts so that I could write plays and direct plays like Olarotimi. But of course, around that time in Nigeria, studying dramatic arts was not a good thing, because they believed that you wouldn't be able to do anything with your life. So they wanted me to study law, but or wanted me to study pharmacy, or wanted me to become a doctor. To cut a long story short, I went to secondary school. I was more of an art student than a science student. I think I was doing well in literature, for instance. I was doing well in English language. So at the end of the day, I applied to study for law at University of Ife. But lo and behold, on the 2 occasions that I applied for law, I did not make the cutoff point. So I went to do my A-levels in Federal Government College, Kano. And fortunately for me, I passed my A-levels. So I entered Ile-Ife with direct entry, and I went straight to study dramatic arts. I started in part 2 instead of preliminary year 1. So I spent 3 years at Ile-Ife from 1987 to 1990, and I graduated with a BA Hons in dramatic arts. After that, I worked in Nigeria. After your degree, you have to serve the nation for a year. I served in a radio station. I was a presenter, producer of a program that I called Copper's Diary. Immediately after my service, I got a job with a television company called Swift Studios, which specialized in producing TV commercials. I was doing a bit of commercials, and I was also doing documentary. Then 1993, there was an opportunity for me to travel to England to supervise an animation that could not be produced in Nigeria. That was how I became an immigrant. I got to England in 1993 May, and I loved it. I thought I could contribute something to the Black arts in the UK. I lived in London for about 3 years. I was working as a TV person, working as a drummer, working as a performing artist, storyteller, etc., etc. About 1996, it was important for me to leave the country in order to change my status. That was when I chose Ireland. As soon as I landed in Ireland in 1996, I thought this is much better than England, because England, of course, is a very big cosmopolitan country, London in particular. You know, I consider myself very invisible in London. But when I got to Ireland, I loved it immediately. I love the fact that it wasn't as stringent as London. It was still, you know, there was still communal living. You go to the pub, you want to buy drinks after closing hours, you can talk to the barman, please give me one more pint. Say, okay, go on. You know, but London, you're closed. So I loved it. And also because there weren't many established Black artists in Ireland. So I was able to establish myself and to put some of the things I've learned in England into practice. So I began to do workshops, and then once in a while, I would get called to be an actor in a play. Like for instance, every year I would be in a mainstream play since 1997. Then around 2000, 2001, I began to see that most of the plays I've done as a Black person, every time I get off stage, I will be tired, you know, because the play will start with my character being in a good mood. By the time the play ends, I'm spent, or I have to return to where I'm coming from. I have to run away because I don't have a paper. That was when I began to think, you know what? I think it is all right for people to tell the Black man's story, but I think it would be better for the Black man to tell his story. So because of that, I set up a theater company, which I called Arambe Productions. And I set up the company to give fellow immigrants like myself the opportunity to nurture their artistic talents, to identify them, and to showcase them. And that was when I began to write plays, began to direct plays, began to produce plays.
So in your play, Whose Child Am I Anyway, your main character uses the phrase so-called multicultural in referring to Ireland. Do you share that feeling? In other words, you know, how has it been being a Black immigrant in Ireland?
Thank you very much for that question, Pancho. Well, I'm sure you will understand when we say multicultural and intercultural, right?
Right.
Just to kind of put this into context. Sometimes around 2000, I was lucky to be auditioned as one of the co-presenters of a program we called Mono. And what Mono was trying to do was to use a television magazine program to talk to the idea of diversity that Ireland was experiencing. As you would know, Ireland used to be a very monocultural society. But around 1997, 1996, towards the late 90s, it started becoming increasingly very multicultural. And when we say multicultural, what we mean is rather than seeing only white people on the street, you're going to see people from Eastern European countries, you're going to see people from African countries. So Ireland is becoming more diverse. And because Ireland was becoming diverse, it was very important for their cultural products to become diversified. And that was why, as I said, I began to be featured in plays regularly. Now, to answer your question, I don't know whether you know, but there are some argument about whether you can consider a predominantly white country a multicultural society. Because what multicultural society presupposes is that people of different cultures have equal amount of power, equal amount of resources to do what they want to do. But the truth of the matter is, in a place like Ireland, you are better off to be white, to be Catholic, to be a male, to be straight, and to be able, you know what I mean? So what we are saying then is, it is not right to call a society like Ireland a multicultural society. Rather, it's better to call it an intercultural society. Because what interculturality, what it presupposes is that there is a particular group of people who have everything that they're supposed to have in a society, and other people are interacting with them. So when I say so-called multicultural society, that's what I mean. It's tongue-in-cheek. Ireland is actually more or less an intercultural society than a multicultural society.
So I recently read an interview with Quincy Jones,
right,
in which he said that whenever he goes to Ireland, he has to stay with Bono because he has found Ireland to be the most racist place he has ever been.
Mm.
Do you think that's fair?
Wow. Well, I'm not familiar with Quincy Jones' experience, and I would love to read that interview. But from my personal experience, I would consider Ireland a very welcoming society, as long as you remain in your lane. And that your lane is to be a victim that needs a helping hand. So, if I were to be in Ireland and I'm selling newspapers on the street, that's fine. People are happy about that. But when I want to realize my potential, when a Black man wants to become a playwright, oh my God, this is the exclusive preserve of the white elites. So I would say, from my perspective, you won't have any problem if you are a victim, if you have no agency, if you have no ambition, if you stay on your lane, if you want to be a taxi driver with your PhD, and so on and so forth. But the moment you begin to say, listen, I'm a human being and I want to be treated with equal rights. I want to be afforded my dignity. I want to realize my potential. This guy's beginning to grow wings, man. And those wings might be clipped one way or the other.
That makes sense. Let's move on to some of the specific issues in your play. So in Whose Child Am I Anyway, you have an interracial couple and the wife has not told her husband all kinds of things about the pregnancy and birth of their child. And she uses certain justifications to explain why she has kept this information from him. Have you experienced, meaning, have you seen that there are a lot of interracial couples in Ireland? And if so, do they have more difficulty than, say, just a Black couple?
Well, the thing about it is like, I think all couples have their differences and difficulties. And I don't know whether you know, I was in an intercultural relationship. My wife was Irish. I was, of course, I'm a Nigerian. But I think I think there's always this intercultural misunderstanding, right? Like, for instance, I think that there are times I will be forced to say "you people," and my wife will say, "What do you mean by you people?" I'm going to say, "Well, I'm not white." I mean, you are white, so you understand what I mean. Keep saying "you people" and things like that. So the truth of the matter is, I have to be honest with you. I have a lot of friends who are married to white Irish women, and they have fantastic relationships, right? But there are some people that are broken up for different reasons. So, and same goes for people who are in same cultural relationship, right? So what I mean is, white married to white person sometimes doesn't work out. Black married to Black woman doesn't work out. So I think every single marriage has its own peculiarity. But you will understand that intercultural marriage has a different layers of its own peculiarity.
So in the play, the wife says that one of the reasons that she doesn't give all the information to her husband is that she has certain knowledge about what it means to be a Nigerian man and how important it is to Nigerian men to have children. Do you think that it would be fair to say that she is guilty of a form of racism in making that kind of assumption?
I would argue that because what she has done is she has painted every Nigerian man with one brush. She's lucky to be married to sorry, not lucky. She happens to be married to a Nigerian man. They must have been on dates before. And the truth of the matter is, it is said that when two people come together to get married, two have become one. So I would have expected her to actually confide in her husband, regardless of her assumptions about how Nigerian men would like to have children. So I would have loved her to, I think by not confiding and discussing the issue with her husband, I think she's subtly being a little bit bigoted, I would say.
So another issue in the play is for the main character to attempt to keep in touch with his Nigerian cultural traditions through food and music.
Right.
Do you find when you are in Ireland that it is hard to keep your connection to Nigerian culture?
Well, it is hard, but you tend to value your culture more when you are uprooted from it. Like all the food that we take for granted. Like I recall, we have a particular cuisine called pounded yam and egusi soup, right? Egusi soup is something made from melon seeds. I recall that when I first arrived in Ireland, then it wasn't as diverse as it is now. Very difficult to get Nigerian ingredients. A man used to cook spinach, right? And will add egg to simulate the melon seeds, and would eat that with pounded yam. So, but as Ireland became more diversified, so were the kind of ingredients that you could see on the streets or in the market, right? So while it could be difficult to keep in touch with your culture, I think you tend to gravitate towards your culture more when you're an immigrant, because that is what keeps your identity intact. So the music, the clothing, the songs, the food, and also trying as much as possible to speak your language as much as possible. So I have the view that when you're outside your culture, you tend to appreciate it more. Just to buttress my point, in Nigeria, for instance, a lot of Nigerian Yoruba kids cannot speak Yoruba language because they believe in Nigeria, the more English you are, the more respect you garner from your peers. So it's actually for them is a thing of pride, not to be able to speak your language. Meanwhile, I know of a cousin who has traveled abroad to study, and because when she's in her room, she will see some Chinese people talking to themselves in Chinese. She has begun to learn the language by watching Yoruba movies abroad. So to answer your question, it wasn't easy keeping in touch with my culture, but it was very, very important for me to do that.
How much time do you spend a year in Nigeria?
Well, like I said, what happened was I lived in Ireland from 1996 up until 2013 when I got my doctorate degree. I came to Nigeria to work for about 2 years in a university because I just thought I needed to. Sometimes I said I want to recharge my batteries, because sometimes when you live abroad for so long, you just want to go back home and reconnect with your roots, and hopefully you get revitalized and come back. So I went back in 2015, and I began to lecture at Trinity College as an adjunct lecturer. So I was doing that on and off. So I'll go and lecture and I'll come back to Nigeria on holidays. But since COVID, I was going to come to Ireland sometimes in May, shortly before the COVID struck. So I've not been back since then.
So that's a perfect segue into your role, not only as a playwright, but also as running a theater company and being a producer, et cetera. What kinds of difficulties did you have putting work on during COVID?
Well, it was very difficult. It was very, very difficult to do live theater, as you may imagine. For instance, I was coming to Washington, D.C. I don't know whether you know of my play. I have this play called The Playboy of the Western World, which I co-wrote with Roddy Doyle. It was meant to be produced in Washington, D.C. They've gotten the rights, they've cast, they've started rehearsals, and I was planning to come over, but it has to be shelved because of the COVID. So that was difficult to do. But, as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. Recently, I got a call from a woman who is of Irish Nigerian heritage. She lives in Nigeria. Her name is Aduke Gomez. She came and said she was looking for a Nigerian who has experience of Ireland. And she came to me that she would like me to direct a play online through Zoom. And she got a British, an Irish woman in Britain to write a short play. And I was asked to direct it. The play has 3 characters. They are all Irish. What I did was in Nigeria, and I cast the 3 actors in Ireland, and they were all living in different parts of Ireland. And through Zoom, we were able to pull it off. We rehearsed, we recorded it, it was edited, it was shown, I think it was shown in the UK or something like that. And it's called The Journey Home by Anna McCarrick or something like that. So another thing I did was, a lot of things that I told you about. I told you I saw his play when I was 9, when I was young. He died 20 years ago. But the man had not been remembered since he died. So I suggested that we should do a seminar. So we did a seminar, a webinar to remember him. So I initiated that and I moderated that. So to say that I've been doing much theater during COVID would not be right. But I've been doing what they call, is this screen theater now or online theater? I don't know what they call it now, So that's what I've been
doing.
Zoom
theater.
Zoom theater, but that's more like it. Yeah, that's more like it. Isn't that what made Gemma willing to think about his audio pieces?
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
I think in my experience, that's what most theaters have been doing, is they have been doing audio pieces and doing them over Zoom.
But I have to tell you that as a diehard theater artist, the first time I saw a play that was streamed live was Royal Court Theatre's performance of Othello. It was done in England, but it was streamed into cinemas in Ireland. When I was going to watch it, I wasn't sure whether I was going to see a live theater or a mediated, recorded live performance of the theater. For me, I don't go to stadium to watch football because I love to see reverse shots. I like to see how they score the goal, all those things from different angles. But theater is a different ballgame. When you go to the theater, you love the immediacy of seeing the actors in flesh, right in front of you doing their thing. But when you're watching it through screen, you're not sure whether you're watching live theater or not. But here we are. Theater is gravitating towards online. And hopefully, virtual reality will not be the death of reality.
So, given that people have had to change how they make theater because of COVID, where do you think theater is going to go in the future?
Oh, Pancho, that's a very, very big question. The truth is this. Theater is one of the strongest performance one of the, how would I put it? The fact of the matter is theater has been with us for a long time. When the cinema came, people thought cinema would take audience from the theater. When television came, same thing happened. But the truth of the matter is, you will agree with me, there's nothing as electric as seeing an actor right in front of you, embodying the character and delivering those lines. I think no matter what happens, theater will remain theater and nothing will take theater from theater.
That seems to always be the case, that when something new comes in, people are afraid that the old will get lost. So when photography came in, people thought painting would disappear.
Precisely. But you'll agree with me that, for instance, I think, was it Ralph Fiennes, the star of English Patient, when he came to do Faith Healer by Brian Friel in The Gate in Ireland, everybody went to see it. Because, man, it's one thing to see Ralph Fiennes on screen, it's another thing to see him on stage. You know
exactly.
And I recall people lining up, waiting to get his autograph. So what I'm saying is, and that's what Broadway does big time. Get all these well-known screen actors, put them on stage, and they pack the house. So I believe, by the grace of God, COVID will leave us and leave our theater for us. You know what I mean?
Do you separate your roles in the theater? Difference between being a producer, being a director, being a playwright, running a theater company? Or do you think all of those are just part of who you are as a theater artist? Is one of them of more importance to you than the other?
Well, I started as when I graduated, I gravitated towards business aspect of theater. So I actually specialized in theater management. But of course, I love acting. I've always been a drummer since I was very young. So I started as a performing artist, right? But as I said, because I wasn't happy with the roles I was getting, I was forced to become a maker of the kind of role that I would like to see on stage. But as you know, it is not easy to be a director and an actor. So I had to choose. So I began to stick with the acting more so, because I think I had an experience once. When I launched my company with The Gods Are Not to Blame, I played the lead role. And when I was on stage, I wasn't sure whether I was an actor or whether I was a director. You know, so any mistake people made, it was affecting my performance. So I began to stick with directing, producing. So I would consider myself more of a creative producer. And also, that also helped me to begin to write plays, you know, because if there were dearth of plays to do, it was my responsibility to write them. So to cut a long story short, I would consider myself more, to answer your question in a straightforward way, I enjoyed directing much more than anything else. But writing was also something that I found amazing, because I think you are actually playing God, because you can kill a character, you can make a character live.
Do you think there's a sufficient critical mass of Black performers and writers in Ireland to create a sense of community?
Well, I'm not sure, because I'm sure you know that Ireland is a very small country, and there's a very small pie to bite from. So the truth of the matter is, when I was in Ireland, when I was doing my thing, I would have been considered the foremost African theater practitioner. And what would happen then was, I was trying to bring up all those people who would like to work in the theater. So I think things are happening, people are doing their things, but the truth of the matter is, I think there's room for more.
Okay, this was a really great conversation. I want to thank you for your time. This was
Thank you.
really enlightening, and I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you very much, Pancho, and God bless you.
Same to you.
Thank you.